We started? Okay, let's see. Let's see, are we in progress here? Hi, everyone. Oh my goodness. I have a guest all the way from Canada. Just right at the moment before this class is starting. Surprise. Good to see you all here together again. And I don't know, like today I was just very moved all over again. You know, just like this month of Elul and learning a lot about the shofar. And as I was thinking about the shofar and thinking about like the primordial, like primal scream, like, I want you, like, you know, I want you Jewish people. I want you to like come close. I want everyone. Actually, 1 second. Oh, 1 second, 1 second. I love about Facebook because I made faces for her to close the door. 1 second. I'm gonna start all over again. Okay, because this is the one that's gonna be saved. Okay, so sorry about that. We're starting here, hopefully fresh. The upcoming new year. We're just blessing everyone to reach new heights in all ways, especially in love and relationship. And as I was listening to some speeches by different authors and listening to the shofar every day, and I've been learning about the shofar, and I just like really connected to this message of like this primordial scream, like Hashem is just like blasting, waking us up. I'm here. It's like Elul is the time that Hashem like really unmasks himself, like takes himself out of the kisei of seemingly judging us and says like, you know, here I am. You know, I am my beloved for you and you are my beloved. And I'm getting off this like chair of judgment, coming to you and showing you my love, my face, my smile, my acceptance. And
so before you go any further, we can blow the shofar.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But we all keep in mind that the blowing of the shofar during Chodesh Elul is not a halachic requirement, it's a minhag. But Minhag Yisrael Toirahi, the Minhag of the Jewish people becomes like Torah itself. And indeed, we learn in Chassidus that the makar, the source of the blowing of the shofar as a Minhag is actually higher than the halachic requirement, the oraisa from the Torah, to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Now, there's many reasons given for the blowing of the shofar during Chodesh Elul. The Midrash explains that when Moshe broke the Luchos Habris and went back up to the top of Har Sinai, that down below by Bnei Yisrael in the camp, they blew the shofar every day during the month preceding the forgiveness that came on Yom Kippur to remind the Jewish people not to commit the same aveira that they did when they had the Chet Egel Zahav, the golden calf. Other reasons given are that, generally speaking, Chodesh Elul, the Melech hu Basada, the king is in the field. It's a month of Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, the 13 attributes of faith, the fact 13 attributes of mercy, rather, that the Jewish people are able to embrace the Eibishter and vice versa without all the levushim, without all the chitzonius, the externalities of a king and a people. We're all one. And so we blow the shofar to arouse in us that love, that closeness to the Eibishter, as my wife will talk about shortly. Slightly differently, even though it's arousing tshuva than the arousal that the Rambam speaks about on Rosh Hashanah, where it's awaken us the slumberers who have gone to sleep regarding Torah and mitzvahs and remove themselves, chas v'shalom, Rahman litzlan, from the Eibishter. The blowing of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, which, as my wife will speak about, the simple voice, the kol pashut, the umke deliva, the depths of one's heart. Elul is a less formal, but just as moving event. Now, the Rebbe was even though it's not halacha, the question whether you can be yotzei hearing the shofar is the menhag during Chodesh Elul over a live stream, over electronic airwaves, has been asked and answered many times. The Rebbe was clear, you don't, but it's certainly not an avera. And to the extent that it arouses in us this closest to the Eibishter, then it serves at least one purpose, even if not that. And as my wife is going to speak about the simple voice, we'll listen to it.
So, even like if you look at the Torah, when we learn the Torah and you see something, it seemingly almost bringing you ill feelings, some of the teachings, if you just like read it straightforward. But when you learn the deepest teachings of the Torah and you just read behind the lines, you understand what like the messages to you and the depths of it, and it just awakens within you an appreciation of something that when you were just reading it and looking at it like in a way that even could be jolting sometimes. Like many people who are just becoming Baal Tshuva and they're like, what? This is it? I'm like, no, there's so much depth to it. So the same thing in our regards to our relationship with Hashem, the way we approach Torah and know there's something so much more in what we're reading. We know Hashem is so much more than what we're seeing in our life here on earth, so much more what we're seeing in the experiences that we have of what he's giving, what he's not giving, and what seems like a no answer to many of our prayers. So too, we have to unmask him in a sense and say, like, I know there's more to what I'm seeing. The same thing in love and relationships. So just like we're reminded in Elul, this is like my calling out to you, come closer to me. I love you. I'm getting off the seat of judgment. Actually, I was learning with, through Abigail Halevi, her teachings on Dvar Malchus, that he's leaving the judgment seat. He's never really in the judgment seat. We just need to understand that in some respects, just like we say, when a child needs to have certain levels of discipline, but it's really all coming from love. Hashem is all love. And when you're thinking about, a person in your life and how they're acting toward you or how they're not acting toward you like you want, there's this deepness to that person's cry of saying, I really want you. At face value, if you're looking at it, the way they're behaving, it seems like they're having a tantrum, or it seems like they're behaving in a way that's so the opposite. But the deepest part of the soul is mamish really crying that I want you, even though it's manifesting itself in sometimes the most opposite way. And I was thinking about when Moshe Rabbeinu was actually at the mountain in Har Sinai, and he was like begging Hashem, please, let me just see you. I want to see the face of you. Enough, like unmask yourself. And Hashem was like, didn't really say no. It seemed like a no. His answer was that you'll see the back of me. And if you just hear it that way, then it sounds like no. But if you learn the deeper teachings of this, see my back, the back actually represents a concept of pnimiyut, right? So there's the front of you, and that actually is also the same root word as panim. But it also, when you look at the idea of something in the back, it means it's more inward. So Moshe got the answer from Hashem. You want to find me? You want to see my pnimiyut? You want to see my face, which is, really also in reference to my pnimiyut. It's in the pnimiyut of you. In you is me. So if you want to really see me, Hashem says, basically unmask yourself. Get rid of your layers of anger and sadness and anxiety and work on removing, the layers that are blocking your ability to be spiritually sensitive to connect to me. And so too, this comes from Rabbi Ginsburg's book on the mystery of marriage. And he says that the same thing happens in marriage. Instead of keep waiting and waiting, when will I see the best of my spouse? When will they treat me so perfectly? Go to the back of you. And when you refine yourself and you work on elevating yourself, that's where you'll see the inner essence of your soul.
So there's an interesting,
your soulmate.
There's an interesting inverse to what we often hear. So in contemporary thought, we're often told that we should have empathy for the other, right? So someone is suffering, God forbid, we're told that we should empathize with them. But the fact is, unless you're a naturally empathic person, and I'm certainly not, it's very hard to put yourself in their shoes, even more so, because we know the stories of the Rebbeim, where a chassid would come and have all this service, and the Rebbe couldn't relate. The Rebbe had to literally go into a different persona and find something in the Rebbe's world, in the Rebbe's life, that could draw out that same connection. So in Chassidus, we're not told that you have to artificially put yourself in someone else's shoes to be empathic. What we're told is that, as my wife's explaining, that you have to go into your own world and understand that feeling from your perspective. How often is it that come Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, after a month of tshuva by Elul, and we're ready, we go in and we're crying, we hear the shofar, we understand the importance of the al-chaitz, of the ashabnus, all the sins that we've committed, confessing them. Because what we're trying to do in reality is to go deeply within ourselves and understand where we've gone wrong, so that when we look at the other who's suffering or triggering our bad emotions, we can understand that person through that deep, profound kol shofar, that simple voice. And it's the same notion that we've talked about on this podcast several times. If you want the Eibishter to forgive you, then you have to find it within yourself, that same midah, that same characteristic, that same emotion. So I know that I want the Eibishter to forgive me and to make me just absolutely successful and healthy and wealthy, and I want my family to be so. But I truly know that in and of myself, I'm not so deserving, because I know the actual cheshbon that no one else knows, because I can sit in the quiet of my own room and know every time I've davened properly, every time I've not behaved properly. I know that. And so if I were to add those up, The only way that I come down on the side of Rachamim and Oisher with an Aleph and Oisher with an Ayin, happiness and wealth and all the good things, I recognize that I have to articulate within myself the very Rachamim, the very Ava, unconditional love that I'm asking the Eibishter for, because I'm not deserving. So if I'm not deserving, then I recognize that I need to draw down from the Eibishter those midas. I have to articulate them to someone else. I have to show the Eibishter that I'm prepared to give to someone else and to the Eibishter what I'm asking from the Eibishter. That's putting yourself, looking in your own shoes, as it were. As my wife says, when we talked about Matogu Olecha, looking in one's own tent. Don't look in someone else's tent. Even when you want to respond to another, you look in your own tent.
So we know in this week, I don't know, it's just how many days before Rosh Hashanah, and the month of Elul is
less than a week.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of the acronyms of Elul is Et Levavcha Ve'et Levav, which actually is so interesting. If you look at the way it's spoken about in the Parsha, it says that Hashem will circumcise your heart. Now we know we are commanded to circumcise the foreskin of our heart, meaning we have to do the work first to remove those layers of our heart's taivas, our heart's negative midos. And Hashem, after we do it, comes in, which we're doing during Elul to be ready for Rosh Hashanah. Then he comes in and then circumcises the heart, not the foreskin of the heart. So too, when I was thinking about this, if God is doing it for us, then we're actually able to do it for another. So if we're working on removing the hatred or removing the judgments from our heart on the other, right? So, it's going to help the process of the other person's heart to be like fully circumcised, as it were, because it's a two-step process.
So the question is often asked by Rosh Hashanah and this circumcising of the heart is that, okay, so you're 30, you're 40, you're 65, and you've gone through how many Rosh Hashanahs, how many Chodesh Eluls, how many Yom Kippurs, and you might have seen some growth and change, but you find yourself succumbing to the same natiyas, the same inclinations, the same taivas, the same appetites, the same triggers. How do you actually make Rosh Hashanah a mechadesh, a renewal? How do you actually draw down that brand new light that the Eibishter brings down on Rosh Hashanah? So one aspect of the kol shofar, the voice of the shofar, the simple, essential level of umka deliba, is to recognize that the blowing of the shofar is such a deep and profound, simple truth that it's beyond time and place. It's l'mayla makom v'zman. And when something is above time and space, and of course, we recognize that in the same way that we talk about when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. How do we not blow on Shabbos? Well, if the shofar is so important and it takes us beyond time and place so that we transcend our own limitations and can make those changes, if we're prepared to actually go with the shofar into this deep inner place that my wife mentioned earlier, is because Shabbos itself on Rosh Hashanah has that transcending quality. But that's the quality of the shofar. It's not automatic though. You can hear 1,000,000 shofars on Rosh Hashanah. On Mitzrayim, we run around on Rosh Hashanah and we blow shofar for people when they fulfill the mitzvah, yeah. But whether or not it transforms them and allows them to transcend the time and place that puts them in a place. It's not an automatic thing. It can automatically, it can just happen. Someone hears the shofar. My wife and I have been on Mitzrayim, I think even last year. We blow shofar and a woman and her husband stopped in the car as we were blowing for someone else on the street and was just heaving in tears. And it can have that impact because it taps into that essence, that core. But in order to really activate that, you have to understand what that power is. And if you understand how deeply profound that simple sound is, and meditate on that during the shofar blowing, during the tefillah. And if it was just that, there's some Rosh Hashanahs, I can tell you, I go through all the tefillahs and I don't focus on anything but the kol shofar. I see our Facebook is trying to reconnect.
Just finish and then I'll redo it and she'll put the two together.
Okay, so we're part 2 of our podcast today. So in any event, I think that if you want to understand how it is that Rosh Hashanah can have this transformative effect on us and literally change us from the person that we were to someone entirely different and new, that focus on the shofar is the essential core, and understanding how and why it does transform us. And that, quite frankly, is studying Chassidus and the concept of Keduriba.
Well, the Rebbe Rashab says in Kuntres Avoda that, in essence, taking what you've experienced during the holiday and every day in your davening, drawing down the experience of the holiday, into every day's davening, so that it, please God, will inspire you to the next year. I mean, we know Tanya teaches us that every day that when the shofar blows on Rosh Hashanah, I don't know, the connection is whatever. Okay, so we'll have here the recording. That's why it's always good to have 2 recordings. But so the Tanya teaches us that when the shofar blows, there's this moichin de gadlus. It's like this time of incredible, intellectual expansiveness. Our moichin of this sort never was in the world before. It's like a new energy, a new wisdom, a new intellectual capacity that comes into the world. And we can access it every day. It's like blowing a shofar when you pray, because every day in your davening, you can bring down this higher level of intellectual wherewithal that you never had the day before. But back to this experience of...
Let me just interpose something here. And that's the concept that the Rebbe teaches us and has taught us from the beginning of the Nesius, of the Rebbe's leadership. And that is, we see these gym videos where everyone comes and the Rebbe is always adding something. Okay, that was fine, but you need to do this. In other words, there's no such thing as the status quo. So many people would say, okay, that's being a chassid of the Rebbe. He's always pushing for more and more and more. Many Rebbeim don't do that. Torah mitzvahs, do Torah mitzvahs, that's it. Daven, do what you got to do. You don't have to be some great shliach somewhere who's always adding. But the Rebbe had that advice to every single person. That being the case, what the Rebbe is teaching us is that the human condition is such that it doesn't exist in an equilibrium. If you're not constantly pushing to move forward, you're moving backward. There's no such thing as the status quo in the human condition. It doesn't find a perfect equilibrium where everything is balanced forever. There's the famous saying by Nike. I don't know if it's still famous, but it was famous decades ago at least. If you're not moving forward, if you're not advancing, you're going backwards. And they said that in the context of sport, but that's why sport is a valuable human endeavor, because it teaches us something about the panemius, about the ruchnius, the spiritual part of Yiddishkeit. If you think you can daven by Rosh Hashanah and have this transformative moment with Kol Shofar, and you can on the moment, but if you think the day after is going to somehow allow you to tap into that as a status, it's a condition that I've now achieved, you're wrong. Everything in Yiddishkeit is a pu'ula. In Hasidus, we learn that every single thing in the human circumstance is haloch v'shov, a going and a coming, a running and a retreating. And that's if it's done properly. If it's not, God forbid, it can always be a pure rotzo. We saw that with Nadav and Avihu. Or it can be an absolute return with no elevation. And then it's just sinking into the abyss of the physical world. So it's a busy train station here in the home today.
I think we should change our class to 6 p.m. or something.
It's always deliveries. You never know when they're coming.
I think
so,
I've been thinking about that.
So the fact remains is that right after Rosh Hashanah, we go right into Aseret Yemei Tshuva, which include Rosh Hashanah, but the process of continually activating that is engaged. And then what happens immediately after Yom Kippur? You start building a sukkah. You do a mitzvah. Because if you're not, as my wife points out, if you're not tapping into that shofar, that transcendence, if you're not doing something that connects you to the Eibishter in an intimate way, whether it's learning, whether it's davening, whether it's a mitzvah, if you're not doing something immediately thereafter and always trying to add to it, then it becomes ephemeral. Right. It becomes something less than what should be tangible in your life.
So basically, when we hear the shofar, I'm asking all of us, I'm sure, like, because the number one, like, joy that Hashem has is when there's Avos Yisrael. So if we could just, when we hear the shofar, remind ourselves, just like Hashem is saying, here I am, I love you. And even though you're hearing like this do, 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 but it's like behind that do, 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 do is a call of love. So when you hear the other in whatever way that you may be hearing them, try to put on a different pair of like hearing aids to help you unmask the cry of their soul, of how much they want, how much they want to get close to you, how much they really do love you. If you stripped away all the chitzonius and all the charades and the facade, and you got to the deepest core of their soul, you would hear it so clearly. But we don't hear it so clearly, just like we don't hear God so clearly. And just like when we learn Torah, we don't see it so clearly until we invest the time, until we investigate, until we like really understand the deeper meaning of it all. And I want to tell you, there's a story that completely like shifted me when I heard the Rebbe tell the story. And I might have shared it before in a different context, but I'm bringing it now in the context of marriage. Here's this woman. She's a Basa Kohen. She's in the Beit HaMikdash, walking with the commander-in-chief as she gave her the key to enter the Beit HaMikdash to destroy it. And as he's beginning to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, she begins to kick the Mizbeach and says, wolf, wolf, wolf. And almost in like this chutzpah, maniac way, says, where did all those sacrifices go? And everyone seeing this, and those who heard that she said this, judged her and said, oh my gosh, it's one thing you you leave your people. 2, you give the key. 3, you go in with the enemy. 4, you kick the mizbeach and in this like holy place to be so brazen and so much chutzpah, like as if to say, look at all the sacrifices the people gave. What did it help? You see, the enemy won. But the Rebbe actually took this story and flipped it completely around. And he said as follows: she was kicking the mizbeach in desperation, in anger, in anguish of the primordial scream. How come these sacrifices of my father didn't help me withstand the test? It was a moment of tshuva, her kicking, and not a moment of disgust or chutzpah. And so the Rebbe actually said, when he saw the story in this way, he actually freed her soul, basically, and released the sparks of her soul that was entrapped and having been judged so unfavorably all these years. And so the Rebbe mentioned so many different stories where, like for us, it looks like if we would have seen it, of course it would have looked that way. But to take, I always say, the Baal Shem Tov's glasses and like look deeper into the situation and judge favorably and know that deep behind that behavior is such a kedusha and such a holy soul crying for help. And there's so many stories. I remember there's a story that I read in the Storyteller of how empowering it is when you tap into their soul and their cry. So there was this very rebellious and very dangerous man on the loose in the town. And he was just completely like scaring everyone that no one would testify against him to put him back on, to put him on trial. And finally, there was this woman. She wasn't going to be bullied around, and she was willing to testify. So finally, the rabbi had evidence to go and capture this wicked one and put him behind bars. And it was that week parsha that he was learning. Was on his way out to do a mitzvah. I think it was a bris milah. And he was like really happy that finally justice will be done. But then he was like learning Parsha along the way while he was in his carriage. And he noticed the Parsha is about Esau and how when Yaakov really did so much to help redeem Esau, that Esau actually wept on Yaakov's shoulders, almost like, because he brought gifts to him, he prayed for him. I mean, he was, getting ready. Maybe it wouldn't help, and I might have to do more. But he did so many things to try to awaken the tshuva in his brother, and we learned that he actually fell and cried and said, "Oh, let's be as one." And so this rabbi said, wow, all this time I was so like, anxious to get him behind bars. I never even really prayed for him that he would do tshuva. So then and there, he started praying for this man to do tshuva. And lo and behold, the man went out to get him and was with a knife about to like kill him. But at the moment he prayed in mincha time for the tshuva of this man, the man dropped the knife and instantly did the tshuva and asked for forgiveness, and it totally transformed him. So like, when we can judge favorably, when we can pray for our beloveds, when we can see the cry of their soul in the midst of their behaviors that they are doing, it really actually does have the power to transform. And there's so many stories like that, whether it's Bruria with her husband and the same thing happened, Aaron HaKohen who treated the wicked ones like royalty, and even the Rebbe. Remember that story when the Rebbe went to the Frierdiker Rebbe and all the certain elder Hasidim was saying, why are you honoring the rebellious ones? And the Rebbe was questioning himself before he was a Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said that you have to give them even more love, like a special child. So even when you're seeing them like so behaving in such disgusting ways, the more you honor them and you treat them with respect, and the more you have the power to bring out the truth of their neshama.
So I'm going to leave it with this thought because I have a conference call I need to.
And we have guests here from from Canada.
But understand that when we talk about this transformative power and transcendence, time and place, higher than that, what that allows us to do is when we're stuck in a place, that is a typically a result of bad habits, that we shouldn't have. But when we find ourselves always suffering triggers or certain responses or eating certain foods, whether it's sleep, whether it's food, whether it's behavior, whether it's speech, whatever it is, just like the good traits, those are typically a product of bad conditioning. You haven't conditioned yourself. You haven't gone through the necessary hitraglut, the exercise and the training that it takes to be able to sustain a certain level of fitness. And that fitness can be in davening and Torah and mitzvahs, and it can be in the physical endeavors as well. But if you don't have that, so when you find yourself on Rosh Hashanah or in any day, and you're trying to overcome that, one place to start is to literally tap into this level of the shofar that transcends time and place, and you can go back to a time and place before you had the bad habits. Now, trust me when I tell you that you can go back to that space of naivete, that space of innocence, that space of tamimus. But you're just as likely to create new bad habits or even go back to the old bad habits because you have certain inclinations, you have certain shortcomings. If you don't, having gone back to that place of tamimus, that naive space, that clean space that the shofar allows you to do, because you've transcended the time and space with all those bad habits, start fresh with the new good habits. Lay out a game plan for what you're going to do every day to achieve the best possible result you can, and identify a time period, whether it's every day, at night by Kriyat Shema Amitai, we spoke about the last podcast, or in the morning by Moda'ani, to do a cheshbon nefesh, to do an accounting and measure your success against what you wanted to achieve that day. And that which you missed, that delta, where you might have fallen short, God forbid, you figure out a way to claim that back. And when you overachieve, you know that you can raise all your other targets because you've gone higher.
So I want to leave you with some insights of the word shofar, but go ahead. I know you have to.
I'm all done.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should have a ksima toiva, shan toiva masuka.
Thank you. So the word shofar actually comes from the word, but believe it or not, this is the first time I learned this from the book Seasons of the Soul by Rabbi Trugman. And it comes from the word peru, which is to be fruitful and to multiply, meaning Hashem created the world and he wants us to create. So, the series of the 9 shofar blows represents the 9 months that the baby is being created in the stomach and in going through that gestation. So when we hear the shofar blow, we're supposed to hear like the birth pains, labor, because we're gonna really give birth here to hopefully a new year, a newer better, upgraded version of yourself. And it was so cute. He wrote you like that we need to be our own midwife to ourselves during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and of course, during the 10 days between the 10 days of Tshuva. So we have to always realize that when we're hearing the shofar, we're putting our disjointed parts of our personality. It's but it's really all one shofar blow, even though it seems disjointed and in piecemeal. But it's reminding us, I want to put all my disjointed parts of myself in a unified presence before Hashem and before every person when I'm especially interacting with my loved one. So may we continue to take the time to hear really the deep essence of our own soul yearning and longing to just really be close to Hashem. And because really the bottom line of all this work is to be able to express to Hashem our desire to have devekas and to come closer to Hashem, and to really then duplicate that experience in our own yearning and longing to be connected to Hashem, because basically, here on earth, the only real way we get close to Hashem, the ultimate way, is when we are a walking Torah, when we bring peace to others, when we unite in a peaceful way with the people around us, so that we can duplicate that experience of wanting to put all our disjointed part of ourselves together and realize, okay, we're in the process of being, and they are also, and also duplicate that in them. It's okay, they're disjointed, they're not so all unified, and just like I'm not all unified, and not let the illusions of what's going on around us steal us away from the truth. And there's a teaching that Abraham, when he was going to the Akedah, which interesting, after I learned this, today, I have to tell you, when I was doing Akedah, I started crying. And I was thinking, I should cry every day in this prayer, because, can you imagine if you're really reading the words? Here, Abraham and Yitzhak are going together, both of them going against their nature to fulfill God's will. I was thinking, yeah, that's marriage. We have to go against our nature to do things for the other, go against our nature, our hurt feelings, our past traumas, and just go walking together to connect to Hashem in whatever way that we can. And when I was, and we know that then that horn that was taken from the sacrifice instead of the Yitzhak that was not in the end sacrificed. If you really think about what was going on there, and if you really are saying those words, you're seeing what a unity, what a vibe, a father and son, daughter and mother, the whole family as a unity, walking against their own nature to do what's necessary to bring that unity into the world. And so Rabbi Avram Trugman was saying how there was a big Yetzer Hara on the way, a huge illusion of raging waters. And it seemed and appeared so real to them. And yet, with their power of emunah, with the power of their dedication and their wanting to have that devekus to Hashem, the illusion that seems so real just melted away. And I'm thinking again, in love and relationships, there seems to be such a distraction of different modality, of different religious standards, of different ways of approaching raising the kids. There's just so much challenges and help or parnasa, and they seem so grand, such an illusion. But if we can just see through it and just realize, just like they went through it and gave us the power. They gave us the power to be able to move away from the facade, unmask that it wasn't really a raging water, it was an illusion. The same too in every aspect of our life, especially in love and relationship. And if you see to it every day, when you read the ram's horn, that they took that, remind yourself of the shofar, remind yourself about the illusion, remind yourself of what is needed, a little extra misrus nefesh, a little extra self-sacrifice, to go against your nature to do what's necessary to bring peace and love. And by the way, when we unmask the situation down here, we unmask the revelation of Mashiach. We'll unmask the blockages and all the obstacles that is allowing the true and ultimate redemption, Mashiach, Techab Umiyad Mamish. So I bless you with a happy new year. We're going to do a little more on shofar, a little more in the next couple of days. Baruch Hashem, as I said before, we have a class Shabbos day at Vicky Morich's home. PM me if you want the information. We have Sunday a class on Tehillim, my Tehillim group, an initiative, which Baruch Hashem will be together 10:30. And then we have another class Sunday night. And I think then we'll see what's next. Blessings to you all. I'm so happy you are here. And Bezrat Hashem, we will have more opportunities together. And I'm so happy to see my dedicated CBTT practitioners here, always growing and reaching new heights to gather the information to help others. Love you all. Bye-bye. I have a guest here from Canada, so I guess, you want to just do a quick meditation? Yeah, since this is, hold on, such an important day, Erev Rosh Hashanah, she can benefit also, right? Yeah, we all can benefit. Me too, by doing this meditation. I don't know, I'm just seeing the Akedas Yitzchak and the shofar, and the primal scream of like, I'm so appreciative of you, Hashem is saying, that you did everything you could this year to bring Mashiach. You did everything you could to bring peace. And I am rooting you on to be able to do more and more. Oh gosh, this disconnected. So let me do this again. So as we're getting ready for this meditation, think about really the person that you most want to bring peace in your life with. Think about the person that maybe have been challenging, and have a dedication. Like, you see a book in honor of, in memory of, like right now, dedicate this meditation, this compassion on their soul that's going to really like open up their soul powers. So with every breath you take, you're getting ready to go to the fields where Hashem is smiling at you, and he has unmasked his judgmental, seemingly judgmental presence off of the kisei of judgment, the chair of judgment, and really taking off the robes of the royalty, coming simply as he is in meeting you in the fields. So with every breath you take, and you take that step toward the king that's in the field right now, and if you could just see the image of the beautiful fields, oh my gosh, it's like swaying softly, calmly. You're seeing the sun shining, all the energy and healing powers of God's light as you see the sun shining and beaming. You smell the aroma of all the sweet blossoms. You experience such a delight in this most perfect place of peace and tranquility. And every step closer to this place, you feel calm, very calm, because of God's love and acceptance of you. You really understand now it's about Him showing up for the life of His love for you. And He's always in the field, by the way, but especially now, He's reminding you all year long, I'm in the fields. But this month, I'm really helping you remember that for the whole year. And as you stand there and you connect and receive God's love, God is blowing the shofar to you. And as He's having that primordial cry of joy, that you are ready to crown Him king again. Cry of joy that you're ready to be in Dveikus with Him another full year. And as you receive His smile and as you receive His kingship, and as He's giving you the scepter, because you are His holy anointed one, anointed to be able to share this love with your spouse, with your loved ones, with your children, with your community, and to the world at large. Just as God has infinite love, you have infinite love to share. And you hear the shofar. You begin to hear the birth pangs. Do, 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 and it's like 9 times, reminding you, I want to give birth anew to a more loving, kind person. I want to hear the cry of joy that Hashem sees that I'm trying. I want to hear the cry of joy that He loves me, that He is so happy I have accepted Him as my Father, my King. And when you hear it, you realize the best way to say thank you, Hashem, is to give it to others in whatever way you can. A kind smile, a kind understanding that whatever you see in the other is a facade. You begin to have the power to unmask the situation and really deeply connect to the primordial scream of their soul, that they do want to have Dveikus with you. They do want to be an honorable person to Hashem. And you're loving them, you're respecting them, is unmasking it. You are hearing their shofar blowing. You are hearing their birth pangs of wanting to reborn and rebirth. You are taking down the illusions, the obstacles, and sharing your love, sharing your deepest respect for the mere fact that they are Chelek Elokai Mamish. They are a part of God. You see that it's melting away and circumcising your heart. And in the process, it is circumcising their heart. Feel the blockages, the illusions melt away from the primordial scream, the scream of yearning and longing. I want to be one with you. I want to give the best of me to you, just like you want to, they want to. And you see the image in the true, pristine soul state, in the essence and the core of their deepest being, by you, that arouses by them. Both of you standing together. Both of you now less disjointed. Both of you now more one and unified with such a godly peace, such a godly love. Now you have awakened the spiritually sensitive parts of your soul. And Hashem now is circumcising your heart, their heart. And now the evolvement of your deepest core soul powers become redeemed even more. You did your part and God has done his. Now you are forever more committed to do what it takes to bring peace and love into the world, your smile one day at a time. Take a moment and say a special prayer. Hashem, please, when I hear the shofar, let me remember what I learned here today. Let it be ingrained in the deepest grooves of my brain. Let my soul forever hold this key to my redemption and theirs. Hear my cry. Hear my love. Let my feet give me the strength to walk forward and be valiant and the warrior of love. Let my heart calmly beat as some of the obstacles may still be around me. May I continuously remember to circumcise my heart, getting rid of the pain and the years of maybe of disappointment that kind of created the walls of separation, as if to protect oneself. Let them melt away. Let my heart be free. Let my positive emotions be revealed so that it could be actualized in my hands as a more giving, more loving person. And you're smiling because like you really hear the shofar blowing. You really hear the primordial cry. The cry of your soul, the cry of God, and the cry of the other. The mask is down. You see the truth. You see love, peace, and joy. Thank you, Hashem. I know you're listening. I know you're so happy that I'm trying. And I so trust that you are helping. And when you're ready, you open your eyes. And if anybody wants, as they're reconnecting to their body, absorbing what we all just experienced now, feel free to share. So if anyone wants to share something or have any questions before we sign off, I'll look at the chat. I miss you, soul sisters that were here at the retreat, and I can't wait for the next one. It was really awesome. I can't even tell you. It was so beautiful. I'm still like, my heart is pulsating with like such energy for the whole year. I feel like those few days gave me such strength for the whole year ahead. So thank you, everyone. Blessings for Shana Tova and Matuka. And bye-bye. Unless I have to unmute them. I don't know how to do that.
Which episode is this? Which part?
What?
Which part of the series was this?
Which one?
Your husband's
I think it's the fifth one.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it because it goes from. I'm saying.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm glad I'm doing it for his sake and for him to learn what I'm teaching.
Yeah, but also.